Hello, everyone. It's Focus Friday for January 5th. I'm Sarah Cavalier, and we're going to start off 2024 with a hot trend. And it's a hot trend in new construction, and it's called the Barndominium. And if we're going to talk about a hot trend, we better bring in the experts. They are local experts to me here in Iowa, but they are nationally recognized and known as social media stars. Is that correct?
I mean, you could say that.
All right. This is Mr. and Mrs. Postframe, also known as Emily and Paul Marshall. Welcome, you guys, to Focus
Thank
Friday.
you.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So start off where you guys are located and maybe just a little bit about how you got started.
All right. Well, Paul and we actually moved to Iowa in 2018, and we have always wanted to have an acreage and live in the country. Paul actually grew up on a farm in Illinois where we were. And so when we moved here, we started looking for property and fell in love with some land in Madison County, Iowa, which is, if you guys are familiar with the bridges of Madison County, that's where we live. So we bought some land in 2018, and then 2019, Paul came to me and said, hey, why don't we build a post frame home? And I was like, I don't know what that is. And he was like, well, it's basically like one of the farm buildings, but we're going to make it into a house instead. And so I said, well, if you're going to do that, I said, you have to put it on YouTube. So that's kind of how we got our start, is that Paul decided to self-build the home that we're actually sitting in right now. And then it just kind of took off. I mean,
Yeah.
it just was kind of crazy. So he pretty much hand built this home, and it turned into our full-time business. This is what we do for people locally, but we also design and work with people all over the country for their barndominium builds. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So you started with YouTube, and
Yes.
Yes.
you guys also have an Instagram channel, correct?
Yes, we're on pretty much every social platform. We have over 700,000 followers across all of the different platforms. You can find us under Mr. or Mrs. Postframe, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. We probably have it. And we share educational content. We share resources with people. We share design tips. We talk about just the different types of barndominiums that there are, because we'll get into that in a second. And again, we share our project and our journey. And we were DIYers. Not everybody that we work with is a DIYer, but we do have definitely a soft spot in our heart for people who are interested in going that route, whether it be contracting a build themselves or contract or doing the work themselves.
Okay.
So
Awesome. Well, let's get started with the real question. What is a barndominium?
yes, all right. Well, I'm going to pull up my screen here. All right. Can everybody see that? Are we good? Okay. All right. So what is a barndominium? So to review here, I should have had this up earlier. This is kind of a little bit of a background of us. And we're going to get into this in a second, but we actually are also owners of Back 40 Building Company, which some of you guys might be from Montana. If you're familiar with Florence, that's where our partner in Back 40 Building is. And that's an architectural design firm that we own. And that's how we do all of our barndominium designing. So lots going on. So here's a little bit of background on what is a barndominium. So your clients might say, hey, I want a barndominium, but it could mean different things to different people. What I always tell people is, typically if somebody's saying they want a barndominium, they've got an idea in their head of like a type of lifestyle that they want to have. They have a type of like home style that they want to have. It's almost always on an acreage. They probably want to have animals, that type of lifestyle is what somebody is usually asking for. But there are different types of construction. So as as a professional working with your clients, it's important to understand what those types of construction are so that you can lead them in the right direction when it comes to finding land, finding builders, finding other resources. So, Paul, I'm going to let you explain the first type, which is the type that we specialize in, which is post-frame construction.
Yeah, so post frame construction is typically how we do it. As you can see in the picture up in the upper right, our typical standard is columns 8 foot on center. So depending on the height of the structure will depend on how many plies. So basically it's 2x6s laminated together, which creates a stronger and straighter wall than, like, say, a solid sawn timber would be. And then we use girts 2 foot on center that go up. Our trusses will usually be 8 foot on center, depending on snow loads, things like that. You get out into the northwest, north, where snow loads are heavier. Usually we either do a 2-ply truss, or we'll drop down to 4 foot on center. So there's lots of ways to make it happen. And then the way a post frame structure gets its shear value is from the actual steel. Like on a stick frame, typical stick frame construction, you get your strength from the plywood that is put on and nailed to your 2x material that's 16 inches on center. So your shear value comes from the steel. However, we add 1/2-inch plywood to all of our roofs just for extra structural integrity. All of our builds, we use 3 inches of close-out spray foam. That's our standard, but that's really, in a nutshell, what it is. It's a really simple, clean way to build. It's really strong because your support member is going from your foundation all the way up to your trusses. And on the end walls, those columns go all the way up to the top core of your truss. So it creates a really strong structure.
Yes. Yeah. So to sum it up, a post frame building is, you might know it as a pole barn, an agricultural style building that's popular in the Midwest, but the entire thing is a wood frame. And the hallmark of post frame construction would be that the exterior structure is completely put up prior to any of the interior walls. So you have a lot more flexibility with your interior layout. You can just design it in a lot of different ways and have a lot of open space and things like that, which is really popular with our clients. So steel frame construction is another type of barndominium build that your client might be asking for. And that is similar to post frame in the sense that the entire exterior structure goes up prior to interior walls, but your trusses, your columns, and everything are going to be made out of steel versus wood. So you're going to see that steel frame construction is a more popular barndominium type in the South, but you are seeing them in different parts of the country. Commercial buildings are steel frame typically. So do you have anything to add about steel frame construction?
Yeah, I mean, typically I see them being better used in the South just because of condensation issues. Metal is a condensating surface. So, if you build those in the North, you have to take measures to cover up that steel with spray foam or something so it can't condense. But they're really strong. Typically you get bigger bay spacing, so you could do up to 15-20 foot spacing, but then you're going back and you're building walls inside those walls, so there is a couple things that overlap there. But yeah, they're really strong for high wind areas and things like that too.
Yes. Yeah. Our clients in Florida, that typically ends up being the best route for them to take with their high wind and stuff like that. But there's still wood involved in steel frame construction, but the columns and the trusses are going to be steel instead of wood. And then the third type of home that your client might be asking for when they say barndominium could simply be a stick frame home that has some of the characteristics of a post frame home, but and probably a metal cladding on the exterior of it, but it is built as a conventional stick frame. So that's going to be, as you guys all know, you're going to have to build all of your interior and exterior walls, together as the build progresses level by level. And that can be an option for people who perhaps have certain covenants for the piece of land that they're looking at, or maybe just the availability of a builder. But those clients still are probably looking for very open concept, maybe an oversized shop or garage, you know, that type of feel with their build. Because most of our clients that we work with, including ourselves, you're going to have like your home, you want this work, play, indoor, outdoor type environment with your build, which is why you usually see oversized shops attached to the living quarters. Sometimes people want more shop than they do house. So that's to summarize what they might be trying to tell you when they say that they want a barndominium. And I will say it's really important going into, I'm not sure when my pictures are showing up, but going into some of the questions that we get the most frequently about barndominium building, it's really important to understand the construction type that you're looking for, because that does impact some of the other factors when it comes to putting the project together. So financing, we get a ton of questions about, will a bank finance a barndominium? Well, my first answer is you need to know what type of construction is, which we just talked about. And then from there, it's not nearly as hard as it used to be to find banks who are more than willing to finance it. All of our clients here in Iowa, they actually, we've got a couple of them using a credit union. We have some of them using like a farm credit services. Rural First is what it's called around here. We have clients using just traditional banks, and they're able to get that financing without a problem for post frame and steel frame. Whereas maybe a few years ago, people weren't as educated about it and were more resistant to it. We have a lender in Kansas that he has parameters and says, as long as your build falls within these parameters, I'm going to be able to sell the mortgage to Fannie Mae. And so I'm happy to lend to you, that type of thing. So your client is going to have a lot of different options now than they were a few years ago for financing. I tell people that's one of the easiest things to handle when it comes to barndominium building now. Storm safety, that's another topic, hot topic, especially here in Iowa and the Midwestern states where you have tornadoes and things like that. Because most of these barndominium homes, that's another thing people are usually trying to tell you is they want a home that's on a concrete slab. They might want the concrete inside of their home to be their finished floor. And we put in-floor heat in all of our builds. So that's really appealing to people, but they're saying storm safety. Here in Iowa, we think storms, we think basement, but there are a lot of different options when it comes to storm safety. You can, in our personal home in the garage, we have a basement room that's dug out underneath part of the garage. That's considered the shelter that we use during a storm. There are companies who build FEMA approved tornado shelters that you can bolt to your floor or bury in the ground inside or outside of the structure. You're going to see lots of people, if you're in one of the southern states, that like people have, maybe you run out to the storm shelter out in the yard, or there's a storm, it looks like a safe in your garage that's bolted to the floor. So and then we have clients who we spec out a storm shelter as a part of their plan. So it's poured concrete walls, poured concrete ceiling, and reinforced and things like that in order to be a storm shelter somewhere within the floor plan of the house. Do you have anything else to add about that?
No, I think most of our clients are going with the bolt down. You can buy the size you want for the amount of people that fit in there. The company brings it in, they bolt it down to the concrete in the corner of the garage. They don't take up a lot of space.
Mm-hmm.
And they're rated up to an F5 tornado. So, I mean, I can't imagine how fun that would be to be in that thing when it was happening, but it would keep you safe. So,
yes,
but that's a very cost effective way. We have had a couple clients, like we've turned like a master closet, we've beefed up the walls of that with concrete, or utility. We had one client just recently that used a utility room and poured concrete walls, which has its own, issues, but it's a place that's very solid. It's going to stand up to a storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a lot of options for your client in that way. Efficiency, that's another question that we get because, you know, we're sitting in a room right now that has 18-foot tall ceilings. Is that efficient? Well, the way that we encourage people to build and the way that we design our barndominiums is that they are a very efficient, low maintenance way to have your home. Paul mentioned earlier that we use closed cell spray foam in the exterior walls of our builds. That's one of our standard practices. And closed cell, want to hang on to that word because there are different types of spray foam, but we use closed cell spray foam, 3 inches. It gives some structural integrity to the building. It brings a ton of efficiency to the building. We're in about 4,000 square feet of living space with about 2,300 square feet of shop garage space, heated floors, and we use propane and electricity. And those 2 utility bills combined average out around $300 a month for us, which depends on where you live, if you think that's a good deal or not. But here in Iowa, that's a really good deal. It's a very efficient home. Low maintenance is also a hallmark of barndominium building because most of the time you have a steel exterior and you don't have to replace that as often. You don't have to maintain that the way that you do siding or other types of materials. You just power wash it. The color is typically from the metal company is guaranteed for 40, 50 years. So you think like people were like, well, what happens when it starts fading? I was like, well, we're going to be about 90 at that point. So I think we're going to be just fine and not care if it does start fading a little bit. But yeah, power wash it. That's how you maintain it. No caulking, seams, that type of thing. So that's a very attractive to people because if you are living in the country on an acreage, any of you guys are doing that now, you know that there is plenty to take care of when you own some property. And so you don't want to necessarily be spending all of your time maintaining your home. You want to actually be out in your land working on that. So do you have anything to add to the efficiency?
I mean, for me, that was very important because, if you look at like a typical house and you have a porch, it's a deck, you have to redo that deck every year too. So for me, it was very important that I had the maintenance free part. So all of our covered porch has concrete underneath it. Another great thing about the barndominium where it's a slab is our entry from our garage to our house is 0 entry. So later on in life makes it very easy to transition from the garage from your vehicle into the house if say you had a wheelchair or something like that. So that's a benefit to some people as well.
Yes. We're seeing more and more people also design and build multifamily, multi-generational homes with the use of a barndominium because of the ability to have that structure go up and have that 0 entry, all of those sorts of things. People are planning for that a lot more than we've seen in the past, which is pretty cool to see that design. And that can be a really efficient post and steel frame barndominiums because you complete your exterior structure before your interior. We have clients that are they're planning for it. So they're having part of their home be an open structure that's just there that maybe they can use for a storage area or something like that until then they move on to the next phase, which would be to complete it as an in-law suite or something like that. So you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to designing your post and steel frame barndominiums. Cost is another thing that we get a ton of questions about because the barndominium got the reputation of being a really cheap way to build a house. I tell people that there are some ways for cost savings and things like that. But at the end of the day, you can see I've got our kitchen behind us. A house is a house. You still need all of the same components that you do in any type of construction. So just because it's a barndominium doesn't mean that your client is going to end up saving 40% on the project because you still need all the same stuff. You still need plumbing, you still need electrical, you still need HVAC, you still need cabinets. The list goes on. But there are some ways that people do save a lot of money. Sometimes your exterior, do you want to address that? Like your exterior structure that can make some cost savings comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overall value you get, what we offer is in-floor heat in all of our builds. We offer closed cell spray foam, which if you go to a stick frame house at the same size, you're going to get more bang for your buck going post frame than you will stick frame. But like Emily said, I mean, that savings is minimal when you look at the whole build in whole, and it comes down to where you really start adding on the dollars is the grade of windows you use, the finishes inside the house. I mean, we all know that you can spend, $800 on a faucet, or you could spend $50, which, that adds up. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, I tell people that cannot be your only motivating factor for wanting a barndominium. You do need to appreciate some of the other things about a barndominium over just thinking that you're going to save cost, because you think about it, even if we typically save a client $20,000-$30,000 on a comparative structure over the course of a $600,000-$700,000 build, that's not making a big difference in their budget by any means.
And another thing to consider is, the appearance of your house is personal preference. So if you have a client that wants a whole bunch of peaks and valleys on their roof, you might be better suited to go stick frame. One of the benefits of post frame is its simplicity. We can add dormers, we can add wraparound porches that keep it pretty simple, but when you start tying a bunch of weird roof lines in and stuff like that, it can get a little bit more complicated, and some of that cost saving kind of goes out the window.
Mhm.
Hey, we have a question. Are you guys ready for a question?
Yeah, we are actually, that's the end of our presentation. So
Okay, great. Do you guys just build in Iowa, or are you in other states?
well, we
Have you built? Let's do that. Where can we find some of your homes?
yes. So we are builders here in Iowa. We're part of what's called the NFBA, which is the National Frame Builders Association. And that's geared towards post-frame construction. And so we're just one of the builders that's a part of that. And so a lot of people can find builders by going to nfba.org and searching in their state. We can design though nationwide. So I'll share one of my slides, like disappeared. I don't know what happened to it, but it was to share. So kind of back to our partnership with Back 40 Buildings is that that's an architectural design firm. And so we're able to design for you regardless of where you live. We're able to design all three types of barndominium construction. And then from there, a lot of times we do have really good relationships with some builders in different parts of the country. So we can typically give you a good starting point of like, where can you start looking for people? And then what to look for, what to avoid, that type of thing.
So if we have clients who mention barndominium and we don't know where to start, we can send them to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. You and your clients, definitely reach out to us. You can contact us through our websites. You can email info@mrpostframe.com. That was my slide that disappeared. That's where it was at, but info@mrpostframe.com. You can just start here and we'll direct you. So we have a great team. They know like where to send you best, what resources to give you. My parents, who are actually with Coldwell here in Iowa, they're our land acquisition referral system. So you could, if you're like, I'm not totally sure what I should be looking for, we do have some for my client. We do have resources for that available. We have financing resources available. So yeah, really we're a one-stop. You can come to us first, and then we'll make sure we get you to the right space.
Okay, what about what are some of the challenges you guys have faced with local city, county building codes, building standards?
Just most of it is lack of knowledge for this type of build. For so long our communities have built stick frame, so everybody's just zoned in on how stick frame is to be built. So when you start building these, there's things that some of the jurisdictions, you get closer to bigger cities, that gets more strict, kind of with anything, and it just takes a while to work through it. We're dealing with that with a county right now, just dealing with, hey, how do we handle this fire blocking? How do we handle this? Which we have solutions for all of that. It's just educating and getting them up to speed, and them being willing to work with you.
Yeah, yes. What we're finding is that if a county really has they're just not familiar with it, they may require that the design be stamped by an engineer. So we have resources for that. I know that the county that we're working with right now, from the sounds of it, they would not require engineering over and over and over again. We just have to kind of put together like a list of standards that the plan would meet, and then they would approve it without going to that additional expense, with minimum requirements, that type of thing, because that's where counties are coming in, is that the residential code doesn't specifically address post frame. So it doesn't mean that post frame construction or steel frame construction is not a very great and wonderful way to build. It just means that the code does not specifically address it. So that's why they might require an engineering stamp on a design.
So you guys are really paving the way. I see it because I grew up in the Midwest as well. And I'm used to seeing machine sheds, and then occasionally you see the barndominium, but now they're popping up everywhere. So here's another question. Do you guys take current shops and convert them to a barndominium? How does that work?
We can do that for sure. We haven't done that for anybody yet. But you could definitely do that. There's just one of our biggest standards is no posts in the ground. So the way I view it, my building standards is, if a post is not in the ground, you don't have to worry about it rotting. So we build on piers, we build on continuous foundation. In all of our posts, there's no wood that's buried in the ground. And that's also a Fannie Mae requirement as well. For it to be considered a permanent foundation, you can't have your wood columns in the ground.
Okay. We have Linda Virgin. She and her family, they said that they built a barndominium when they moved to the mountains north of McCall, which I think is either Colorado or Idaho. I'm not sure. Linda, chime in if you can. And they were able to have basketball games in the winters indoors. Heck yeah. It would be awesome to have all that space to send the kids for the family games. Can you guys give us your website?
Yes, mrpostframe.com.
Okay.
So mrpostframe.com, mrspostframe.com, and then back40buildings.com is our design firm. So back40buildings.com. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then we're not hard to find. You just go Google us and something will pop up.
Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for spending this 30 minutes with us so that we can be on trend and have a good resource, which is you guys, for our clients when they start to ask about these things. Thank you for all the questions you've answered just by being so knowledgeable. It was really, really fun. Thank you guys. What's your next project that you're going to work on when we're done with this?
Well, we've got a lot of catch up and stuff from Christmas break and stuff, but we're ordering some steel for a barndominium that we're building here in Carlisle, Iowa. And we're doing some plan design, working with our team. We do probably about 40 designs a month for barndominium builds. So yeah, we've got a busy day ahead of us for sure.
All right, you guys have a great weekend.
Sarah, thanks everybody.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Everyone else have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.